Okay, right. So, folks, welcome to this week's masterclass. We're looking at how CFOs can lead finance transformation with AI in 2025. And I'm going to hand over in a moment to Priyam, who is going to chair the session. We're going to do something just a little bit different today. Normally, I would chair these masterclasses with a guest CFO or a guest expert. Today, I have got exactly that. I've got Aprav Bensov, who's the CEO and CFO at Zenskar. But because the subject is all about leading finance transformation, and that's something that I did as a management consultant for 20 plus years, then it makes sense actually for me, rather than to lead the session, to be on the panel as well. So we've called in Priyam, who works directly for Aprav, to chair the session for us and to pose questions to both of us. So with no further ado, Priyam, and I am waffling a little bit because I know at this stage that when we've got a large number of people registered for a session like this, it does take a few minutes for everybody to get in the room. So I am waffling a little bit so that folk have got a chance to sign in and not miss anything. But I am going to hand over to you, Priyam, to introduce yourself and introduce the session properly.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kevin. And welcome everyone once again. Thank you for joining us today. We are thrilled to have Kevin and Apoor both as panelists today on this topic, how CFOs can lead finance transformation with AI in 2025. I think this has been a topic that has been getting some attention in the community for a very long time. So very excited to have both Kevin and Apoor sharing their experience today. Like Kevin said, we'll wait for a couple of minutes for people to jump out of their work calls, grab a coffee or a snack. I know people are joining from different time zones and just settle in so that they don't miss out on the session. In the meantime, I would actually love to see the power of live webinars. I know we have global audience. So if people can start sharing in chat, where are they joining from? It would be really interesting to see what audience do we have today. I hope you have the chat option so you can message us and we'll be able to see where are you joining from. I have someone from Georgia, USA. Welcome to the session. Iowa, Qatar, USA.
South Carolina, Israel, Edinburgh. Gosh, we've got a big mixed audience here, Priyam.
Amazing.
New
Yeah,
Orleans,
from London as well.
Francisco Bay Area, Denver, London. Gosh,
Yeah, seems like 50% is the US and the rest is global.
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, Bangkok.
It's pretty late in Bangkok right now.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam, for making time for this. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. I think we have people joining in, so we can get started in the meantime. Cool. Once again, welcome everyone to the live webinar. We are planning to have this as a discussion and not like a one-way chat. So feel free to keep posting your questions, your ideas, anything you want to chat about and want us to cover in the Q&A. We'll make sure to come back to that either during the session or towards the end of it. We'll try to answer as many questions as possible and keep this interactive. Without further ado, I would love for our panelists to introduce themselves. I'll come to Kevin first. Kevin, do you want to briefly introduce yourself? I'm sure the community remembers you, but still.
So most people will have met me before. I am Kevin Appleby. I am COO at Grow CFO, and I'm the podcast host of the Grow CFO show. But why I'm on the panel today and not doing the interview? Well, I am a finance professional by background, as many of you know, and a long, long time ago, I joined PwC as a management consultant and spent 25 years or thereabouts as a consultant on big change programs, either the finance expert on a general change project or doing finance transformation. So, how CFOs can lead finance transformation is right in my sweet spot today. So I'm thoroughly looking forward to this.
Awesome. Thank you so much and look forward to having this discussion with you, Kevin. Apoorv, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I can go next. So I'm the co-founder, CEO, and CFO at Zenskar. I started my career as a management consultant with Bain, where I led a few, transformation projects with, Fortune 500 companies. Went on to work at Google, where I was working on Google Pay. And yeah, built a bunch of fintech products there at Google. And yeah, started Zenskar. So after that, I was a VC, investing in, fintech companies. Did that for a couple of years. And then started Zenskar about 4 years ago. We are an AI-powered order-to-cash platform. And we are seeing a lot of our customers, in the last 4 years, we have seen the change in how they're adopting AI. There was practically nothing happening when we started the company 4 years ago. It started gradually increasing maybe 2 years ago. And the last 6 months have just been, like a whirlwind of change. So, yeah, excited to talk a lot more about how CFOs can lead transformation with AI.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the brief intros. Let's jump right into it. And as always, I love to start webinars getting a sense of who we have in the audience. So I'll launch my first poll and we'll get started there. Awesome. So where are you in your finance transformation journey? I think this is what we need to know so that we can make sure that our audience gets the right answers. Actively evaluating tools, just getting started exploring the landscape. Midway, some parts automated, others not, and relatively mature stack now optimizing. This will also help us see if the AI FOMO is over or where people are still looking out to understand what is AI. Awesome. I'll wait for a few more seconds for our audience to respond to this. Clearly, people are still exploring the landscape of 50% of the audience. So I think what we have planned to share here, people will find really, really helpful. Awesome. I think I'll end the poll now. Great. So again, half the audience is exploring the landscape, just getting started. Another 20% is actively evaluating tools and vendors. And somewhere 25% of the audience have automated some parts, which is great, and exploring for probably other parts. And a relatively small audience, 5% is relatively mature in their stack and optimizing right now. I'll keep the results here so that people can look them up.
And that, I think, Priyam, is fairly typical to what I'd expect. I think a lot of people are very, very early on the journey here, and they're still asking that question of how do we actually do this? They're seeing it as a great big thing on the horizon that they're probably a little bit scared of. I think part of the purpose of what we're talking about today is to help ease those concerns and say, well, how do you actually get into this?
Yeah. That's, I think, the first question I have for you, Kevin. I want to take a step back and talk about our dear persona, CFOs. Let's begin with the big picture, Kevin. Based on your work with CFOs across the community, podcast, and all the conversations you've had with them, how have the expectations for CFOs evolved with the past few years, especially with this burden of leading digital transformation for finance tech stack? What are your thoughts there?
So past 5 years, that's an interesting one. Graham. 2020, that's the year we founded Grow CFO. And now, one of the first things we did in Grow CFO, we created a short training course, which was all about the evolving role of the CFO. And we looked actually over a period of about 100 years and said, what's happened? And saw the role going very much from number cruncher to reporter to compliance to governance, and then going increasingly to being the advisor in the business. But what's happened since 2020? Well, actually, the first thing that we were faced with in Grow CFO was a whole load of CFOs who were plunged into the COVID crisis and lockdown. And we spent a lot of time in those early days helping CFOs talk to each other and help them solve each other's problems and work out what to do to work out all these people that were furloughed, the business model that had changed, the shops that couldn't open, and so on. But really, that was a game changer for many CFOs because they were really hands-on involved in the business strategy and hands-on involved in the business plan and implementing it, possibly in a way that many of them hadn't been before because they were in crisis. So I think one of the things that's happened in the last 5 years is that role of the CFO being much more important as the advisor to the business and the proven advisor because they've seen the CFO do stuff than ever before. And now we've got a couple of other big game changers coming up after that. And one that's emerging, I think, is the whole sustainability agenda. And people are looking to the CFO and the finance team to sort that one out. And that's taking the CFO now into a lot of areas that are outside strictly finance and reporting on and crunching numbers on a lot of data that doesn't have a pound or a dollar sign in front of it. And I think the final one, now AI is a game changer. It's driving change across major processes like purchase to pay, order to cash, and the finance lead is supposed to be picking up the baton on this. And because those are such big processes that go right across the business, means leaders getting involved now much more than just finance transformation. You know? It's procurement transformation, it's sales transformation. So there's a lot going on.
Awesome. Yeah, I hear you. And I think, Apu, from your vantage point, building finance tools at Zenskar, are you seeing a similar shift in how CFOs define their roles and responsibilities?
Oh, 100%. I mean, with the kind of automation that's now available, like number crunching is actually a very small part of the job. CFOs expect large parts of it to be automated. And they really think of, their role. In fact, the expectation from their role, from the CEOs and the board, is that to be a, it says here, strategic thought partner to every part of the business, whether it's around, working with marketing to figure out, hey, what channel should we invest in? Not just what kind of budgets to invest, put in every channel, but really going deeper into why a specific channel makes sense for the marketing team, how it drives ROI for the business, whether it's around, hey, what products should we be launching? How should we price our products? How should we package them? What new line of business should we enter? Whether it's about working with the sales team to define sales compensation plans. Like the CFO needs to, first of all, build a relationship with every other department in the business. Only once you build that relationship can you really be a strategic thought partner, and after that really dive deeper and help every other part of the business make those decisions. So it's really moved on from number crunching, and it's a lot more strategic now, more forward looking. So yeah, we see
Yeah, that.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah.
Awesome. I want to actually make this discussion extremely actionable for our audience. So I would jump right into the next question, which is about sharing real world examples where a relatively small AI or automation initiative, drove results, maybe a specific KPI that got uplifted. I want to come to you, Kevin, first. So any case studies that you can share with our
Um,
audience?
I think this is something you need to get your head around with AI. Now, when we've talked finance transformation in the past, we've been talking about ripping out systems and replacing them. We've been talking about big projects. Okay. Now, I don't think that's necessarily the case anymore. You can, with AI, do small stuff that makes a big difference. You can put an AI agent in place alongside your existing systems. You don't have to change system necessarily. Um, I think the most interesting one that I'd highlight at this stage would be a few weeks ago, released a podcast, and the guest was Jeff Martini, who is the CFO at Bishop Lifting. And Jeff's been doing exactly what I've just described. He hasn't got rid of his legacy systems at all. It's the same ERP, it's the same purchase to pay solution, it's the same sales to revenue solution. But he has put in AI agents in several places, and particularly he has found that the one metric that is really shifted is DSO, days sales outstanding. AI agent highlighting the debtor's ledger, looking at the things that need chasing, working out which debts you should be putting most emphasis into, doing some of the simple things like the dunning letters automatically, and bespoking them to particular customers, all have given some fantastic returns. So that's something where, relatively small investment in AI agent makes a decent change to a KPI, day sales outstanding, and actually has a direct financial effect on money in the bank.
That sounds wonderful. That is really interesting that how you don't need to always change something big to
Yeah.
make big move. It's 80/20. You automate or put AI to things that are really causing the pain and then take it from there. Any other examples, Kevin, you want to add to this?
There are many. And actually, Priyam, one of the things we've been doing in Grow CFO, we've got a quarterly tech theme. Okay. Last quarter, we looked at purchase to pay, accounts payable, and spend management. We issued a tech innovation report. So we said, look, what are the problems in this area? What are the solutions available? Can we show any case studies where people are making a difference? Publishing that and then bringing some of the vendors in all of the areas that we've covered to say, actually show us the practicality of your tools. So we did purchasing side last quarter. This quarter, we're doing the accounts receivable side. We're doing order to cash. And I believe you're joining us next week to do the tech showcase for this quarter. And very, very practical stuff. We're not trying to put a whole load of competitors here in a room and getting them to play off against each other. We've got 4 solutions we're going to showcase next week, and therefore very different solutions, each looking at a different part of the problem. And get a hold of the Tech Innovation Report. It's available on the Grow CFO website. It's an easy download. It's in there. There's a whole load of stuff by way of examples of where people have improved in this one right across the order to cash cycle. Get a hold of the quarter before and you'll see the same thing for the accounts payable side of things, purchase to pay.
Awesome. Yeah, we look forward to that session next week. And I think for all of the audience who are actively exploring tools like we heard in the first poll, I think tech shows and demo days are the best way to get a sense of what's out there in the market and what you can potentially do, with your tech stack. Awesome. I want to come back to Apoorv on the same thought. Apoorv, you have seen firsthand how automation impacts billing, RevRec, reconciliation. Can you walk us through what changes most teams, that adopt AI-led workflows go through, as they go through this automation transformation?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I can talk about 2 examples that we've seen with our customers. So, one is this company scaling revenue without adding more people to the finance team. So, we've had customers come to us with a very specific agenda that, hey, we're at 20 million in revenue. We want to grow to, 50. And, there are 4 people in the finance team at 20 million in revenue, and they don't want to double the finance team as a double revenue. And they're like, hey, can we add agents to the team who can continue to help us so the current team can do more strategic work. So I think the metric that they are measuring is revenue per FTE in the finance team, and making sure that that number can double or triple as the company scales. You don't have to add more people in the finance team as the company keeps increasing, and people in the team are actually doing more strategic work as opposed to the work that can be done by an agent. So that is one metric that we have seen a lot of our customers to truly optimize for, which is revenue per FTE at a company level, but also revenue per FTE in the finance team. I think the second one that I can talk about is revenue leakage. So a lot of people come to us, when they're trying to automate their billing and revenue accounting workflows, and they compare, okay, what was the leakage in revenue that I had before I was automating billing using AI agents versus how much was I able to prevent revenue leakage after billing was automated using AI agents. And we have seen up to 3 to 4%. I mean, anywhere between 1 to 3, maybe 1 to 4% revenue leakage so the before and after, the before situation being, hey, we're running billing manually on a spreadsheet. We're sending incorrect bills to our customers because see you can when you send incorrect bills, you're either underbilling or you're overbilling. When you overbill, your customers will tell you because they're like, hey, you sent us a higher amount. When you underbill, they will never tell you. No one will ever tell you. And when you underbill, you don't know you underbill. And so customers come to us saying, hey, can you look at my sales contract for the last 3 years and tell me how much I've underbilled and what kind of revenue leakage I had? And we run those contracts through our AI and kind of run it versus their manually generated invoices. And we've seen, um, at a 25 million revenue, 3% is about 700K in lost revenue. And we've seen people kind of try to optimize that metric by automating their billing process using AI agents. So yeah, those are two recent examples that come to mind: revenue per FTE and revenue leakage.
Yeah, that's very impactful. 1 to 3% just by automating your finance operation, just increasing the top line. That's really, really impactful. Awesome. I want to actually go back to my audience and get a sense of, like, these are use cases I'm sure people have heard here and there in different case studies and different webinars. I want to know what are the blockers to getting here. So I will launch the next poll, which is exactly about this. What is the biggest blocker to AI adoption? I see a couple of questions already around that. Lack of in-house technical talent, unclear business case or ROI, resistance to change from the team, uh, or poor data quality or fragmentation. Again, I'll give this a minute, but I want to collect thoughts from Kevin in the meantime. Kevin, what do you think is the reason for not adopting AI, despite having heard these use cases that make such a big difference?
Yeah, major reason I think is lack of knowledge, lack of in-house technical talent. And I bet the poll when we see the results is going to show that one. But
Mm.
uh, what are the blockers? Siloed systems for me is one. No, systems that don't naturally talk to each other. Your data is all over the place, and integrating that data together is an issue. Before you start using AI on the data, you've got to get it into one place, which in turn means that you've got to have good data quality. Okay. Garbage in, garbage out. AI will not work on bad data. We've seen that simply in ChatGPT, and we've seen that tendency for just those simple AI questions. If ChatGPT doesn't know the answer, it'll make something up. It's going to be no different with your finance data. It's not good finance data, it'll make the results up. Which then brings you into the next issue at adopting AI. That can be a blocker. You've got to have some good data governance. Now, control over the data. So you've got a single version of the truth. If you're going to start putting everything into AI and allowing AI then to investigate a lot of things, well, it then brings up data security issues. Who, in terms of staff, is supposed to be able to look at what particular data? What security do we have around access permissions and things? Because if AI can get to everything, then it can potentially show everybody everything. So you've got to get that data governance right. Now, once you put all those things about data together, they feel like a huge thing you've got to get around. And I'd throw one other blocker. Expectation of saving cash. Okay. There are some use cases that will definitely save you cash. There's an interesting one that Aprav mentioned around revenue per finance person. It might allow you to get bigger with the same finance team. But if you think you're going to lose people as a result of AI, then you'll have a huge problem building the business case around that. Because a lot of the time, what happens is you're going to be taking away a small percentage of people's day jobs and automating it. And chopping off arms and legs is very different to getting rid of whole people, to be crude about it. So loads of stuff there, Aprav. I think it's probably time. Oh, you are sharing the poll. Yeah. So we were right. Lack of in-house technical talent is number one.
Awesome. Yeah, I see that. And just a quick check with the audience. Are you able to see the poll results? I'm hearing in the chat that some people are not. So just want to make sure a quick thumbs up or a yes would help. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, people are seeing it. I'll pray on my
Awesome.
phone.
I want to come back to Apoorv now on the security and compliance. We hear so many concerns about this, and I'm sure Apoorv has insights to share on this.
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk about security and compliance, but just quickly add, like, I see a few people saying in chat that, hey, a blocker for us to using AI is just smaller teams and bandwidth. Like, we can keep muddling along, so we don't have the time to step back and make an investment. I'd say, see, if you're able to make do without AI, you don't have to use AI. At the end of the day, every process within your team has to run efficiently at as optimized a cost as possible. If you're able to do that without AI, great. But at some point as the business grows, you will see yourself either wanting to hire more people, or you will see yourself pushing back or saying no to some initiative because of lack of bandwidth. And that is when you have to ask yourself, hey, could I have used AI to either do more with my time and not have to push back to, my peers, or, could I have used AI to prevent hiring one more person? Of course, you can keep muddling along, but, if other teams kind of end up leveraging technology to do a lot more per unit time than you, then it just pushes the business back from a competitive landscape perspective. So that's just something I like to share on, using the time and lack of bandwidth being one of the factors. On security, see, I think it's we of course are an AI powered order to cash solution, and literally every customer of ours, the first question they ask us is, hey, can you talk to us a little bit more about security and compliance, as they should. And in fact, if you make an investment in AI, any vendor that you bring on board, that's the first question you should ask them, because that's a serious concern. And I think the most legitimate vendors have, they have very, very strong controls in place to make sure that your data is not being used to train their models, is not being used to optimize somebody else's workflows, definitely not your competition's workflows. Your PII is not being exposed. There are enough controls available to make sure that, models are trained on publicly available data and not private data of yours. But those models can then be used to, automate a lot of your specific workflows. Enough control available to make sure your data is stored, in a private tenant that is not shared with other people's data. So again, it's all possible. It's all about does the vendor have the right controls in place? And you should ask any vendor you evaluate from an AI perspective. Hey, send me your you know your data security, your privacy policies, send me your SOC 2 documentation, talk to me about how you train your models, make sure that your contracts that you sign with them have specific language that carves out that, hey, your data will not be used to train models. And those are just some best practices to make sure that see, the analogy I use is, when software was moving from on-prem to cloud, people had similar concerns. Hey, what happens to my data? But the industry made sure that that was protected and taken into account so that the industry could grow. So every software, cloud vendor made sure that data security was taken seriously, and similarly, every AI agentic vendor is doing the same. So you need to do your due diligence on vendors, but once that's done, I don't think that should be a reason to kind of not adopt AI, which will kind of put you back as compared to your peers in the industry and the competition you compete against.
Yeah. I think that's very helpful. We do hear this concern a lot, and I'm glad someone asked, and I hope we were able to address that. Um, awesome. I want to move on to something that both of you have mentioned a lot of times, AI agents. we keep using them, like internet will change everything, AI agents will. But again, I am here for my audience, so I want to launch a poll to know, do people really get what an AI agent is? Where are they with their familiarity? So I've heard the term, but not sure how it works. I understand the concept, haven't seen it in action. Actively exploring or testing AI agents. I'm curious to see how many people are in that bucket and already using AI agents in part of our finance stack. I'll give this poll a few seconds, but I think it's a 50-50 between not knowing much or knowing a little bit but haven't seen in action. So, Apur, I want to come to you on this note. Do you mind taking a quick 101 on what are AI agents? I can maybe share screen and help the audience capture that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people already know it, but happy to do like a very, very basic, refresher. You can maybe, pull up your screen that will help the audience. But, AI agents they're nothing more than, I mean, it's a fancy term, but they are software entities that can, they are trained to think, decide, and act on your behalf. And I'll talk about what each of those means. I'll take the context of the order to cash space, which is kind of where we operate. So the agent is trained on data. And, when it comes to, let's take a specific example of, we have an contracts AI agent. Now, what that does is you upload your sales contracts. The agent reads the contracts, and based on the terms in the contract, the pricing model, the timelines, it generates billing schedules and generates invoices. So what the agent did in this case was it was trained on certain specific data. Using that data, it read the sales contracts, which is essentially the thinking part of it. After it read the contracts and thought about it, it then generated, revenue schedules. It decided what kind of schedules to kind of, generate based on the contracts. That's the decide part of it. And once they were generated, it sent out the invoices to your customers. That's the act part of it. So you go back a couple of slides, Priyam. Um, yeah, so the agents are essentially, sorry, one more slide. Yeah, so they're more than chatbots that came up maybe a decade or so ago. These agents are much smarter and they're kind of taking actions on your behalf. So again, another example maybe reconciliation. Your payments come in, you need to reconcile them to invoices. The agents are smart enough to understand what payment came against which invoice. Sometimes an invoice comes in against three payments. Sometimes one payment will come against three invoices. So, leveraging signals on, hey, who made the payment, what was the amount, what time it came in, what country it came in from. The agent is able to kind of smartly, do the cash application that otherwise would have been done manually. And you have two types of agents. Of course, you have more, generic agents and you have more specific agents. So general purpose agents are Chat GPT. Like it's more generic. It's not trained on specific data. So it gives you, it's like a smarter version of Google. It'll give you all kinds of answers to more generic questions. But it's not specific to your finance workflows, whereas specific finance agents, again, the difference is the kind of data they are trained on and the kind of decisions and actions they are used to making. So again, we have our own AI agents. Companies like Anaplan have their agents. These are built specifically for finance workflows, whether it is billing, revenue accounting, reconciliation, forecasting, and they'll be more accurate as compared to a general purpose agent when it comes to making those decisions and taking those actions on your behalf. To help you kind of do more with your time.
Awesome. I hope the audience found that useful in their understanding of AI agents and what they can do. Abur, do you want to take another specific example for AI agents? Any insights on the impact that teams had with, automating these workflows? Anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, it just helps you do more per unit time. Like an agent is nothing but like it's an agent. It's another person on your team, except that it's not a person. It's a system. It's software. I can give examples of how we have seen our customers use AI agents. So we have let's say you're using a billing system, you want to issue a credit note. Now, in a more traditional system, what you would do is you would go inside the system, you would go to the specific customer, you would click on the button that says, hey, issue a credit note. It would take a couple of minutes for you to do that. You would click submit, click OK, and it would kind of help you issue the credit note. And then you would hit send, it'll send out the credit note. With an AI agent, you just say, like you type into Chat GPT, you will type into, let's say, Zenskar's credit note agent and say, hey, issue a credit note against for so and so customer and please send it to them. And the agent will just do that. So all those clicks that you had to do, the amount that you had to enter, the couple of buttons that you had to press, and imagine doing this for like 500 customers, the amount of time that you had to do per customer that reduces. Let's say, you had to run some reports. Traditionally, how would you run a report? You would take data from a billing tool or a revenue accounting tool. You would export it into, a visualization tool like Looker or Metabase. You would write some, SQL queries or get somebody on your team to write those queries. You would go to your data analytics team and you'll be like, hey, give me my ARR reports, give me, my churn cohorts, give me my ARR drill downs. You would have a set of specific reports that your board will want to see. Now with an agent, so we have an agent called the analytics agent. What that does is you can just type into it and say, hey, send, what was my MRR last month? Why did it fall? Or, the more proactive insights agent will tell you that, hey, churn for this cohort of customers increased this month because, they face friction with this segment of the product. So it's giving you more proactive insights. It's, helping you make decisions without you having to perform all the actions that relate to, downloading data, writing queries, massaging it, and then kind of diving deeper and creating pivot tables, and, running kind of different scenarios. The agent is able to do all of it at the back end by you just typing and chatting with it and interacting with it with a chat GPT kind of interface. So that's how, we have seen agents help in the order to cash workflows.
Awesome. And again, I see a bunch of questions around wanting to see something in action. Unfortunately, we can't do that on this webinar, but if you're interested, again, shameless plug, but please head to zenskar.com and book a demo, and we'd love to show you what we have built here. I want to come back to Kevin. Kevin, how do CFOs ensure that this AI agents thing does not become the next shiny object that they chase, and they stay grounded in outcomes? I know you want to speak about this, so over.
Yeah, I think first thing I'd add to the poll results that we've just seen, and I'm surprised by the number of people that said I've heard the term but not sure how they work. Well, you've probably used AI agents a lot and not realized it, because AI agent is a relatively recent term that has come out. But how many of you have a process within your accounting system where you get invoices or receipts coming in and you scan those receipts and they automatically appear in the ledger? Now, the scanning process works out who's the invoice from, what's the amount of money, how much is the tax in here, and probably has a very good try at working out what it is that you've bought, ranging from a cup of coffee to a piece of software. That is an AI agent. Now, we had that. I think probably the example is Receipt Bank, which became Dext. That has been around for a long time, but that is an AI agent. There's AI in there doing the thinking. Okay, so don't think for 1 minute that these AI agents are this brand new thing. Okay, now think how easily as well it was that if you implemented that system. Did you get into shiny object syndrome? No, probably you didn't. It was pretty much a no-brainer that you saw this thing that was very easy to implement. You could do it yourself. You didn't need any IT people to put it in. You could make it happen quite quickly, and you could see a clear improvement in process as a result of doing it. Now, I'd say to avoid shiny object syndrome, you've got to stay in that same mindset. A lot of that actually starts off with finding out as much as possible about what's going on in the world of AI. So I think attending webinars like this is a very, very necessary part of what you should be doing in your role. But also, I mean, we can only cover so much at a fairly high level in 60 minutes in a webinar. I'll come back to why do we issue those tech innovation reports and grow CFO? It's to tell you about everything that's happening and to highlight the use cases for these things. You could spend lots and lots of time trying to find out for yourself. Well, don't. Let other people tell you what's going on. That's what we're here for. And you can't afford shiny object syndrome because the rate of change we've seen over the last 12 months, 24 months, and the rate of change we're going to have going forward is going to be such that you literally cannot look for every latest tool that's come out and have a go at it and try it out. That just is not practical. You'll get nowhere doing that. So
Yeah.
all the time, it's got to come down to look for nice, easy, obvious changes. And more than ever before, you've got to build a business case around that. So what are the costs? What are the benefits? What's the return on the investment? Okay, invest where there's a clear return. Don't just play with these things for the sake of playing with them. But because the rate of change is so great, there's a huge temptation to put one in and move very quickly to the next one. Be careful about that. Finish one project before you start the next one. And make sure if you put that business case together that said, here are the benefits that I want to drive out with this tool, then you've done the work to put the benefits, to get the benefits out. Okay. It's not just putting a new tool in for the sake of putting a new tool in. You've got to go through the business change side and the behavior change side to make sure that you get the return from that tool. Okay. So I'd say actually shiny object syndrome at the moment, I think less is more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we were just discussing this internally once. We will need soon an AI agent to explore all the AI agents out there. So I think that's the next big software that people should be building now. But zooming out back to strategy, I think
Actually, Priyam, if you have the paid for version of ChatGPT and you put it into deep research mode and ask it that question, you do actually get some pretty good answers at the moment. It tends to go do a load of research for you and it doesn't make too much stuff up.
that's
So
interesting.
if
We
you
use
want
deep
a good
research.
list of agents, do that.
Absolutely. I know what's the next step for me after this webinar. I want to step back, from AI agents and look at the finance stack once again in 2025. I think that's something everyone present here is, wanting to learn about. So, Kevin, this is for you. If a CFO were to design the finance stack from scratch in 2025, knowing everything that we know about AI, what are the three, four capabilities or tools, or how would you categorize, the finance tech stack, and what tools would be at the top of your list?
Oh, gosh, that's a big question, Priya. I think, first of all, um, if use a standard answer, if anybody comes to me for a recommendation on what tool should I have, which system should I have, I'd always say it goes back to your requirements. If somebody came to you and said, Kevin, what car should I buy? Well, I could quickly recommend the one that I drive. But that may not meet what they want. Not everybody wants a big SUV. Some people want a fast performance sports car, a hatchback, whatever it is. Now, everybody's needs are different. So, what three or four capabilities or tools would top my list? I'd say, well, firstly, no one size fits all. I can't recommend specific tools, But what I would say, you know, every tool comes to market with a USP. Take Zenskar, as I can see on your background behind you, backed by Bessemer Venture Partners. Now, when you went to Bessemer, you would be going and raising finance because you'd be saying something along the lines of, "Hey, we've got this great idea. Here's a gap in the market. Here's a problem that we want to solve. Give us some money, please. So look at all of those tools out there because they're all solving different problems. There might be an awful lot of overlap between them, but they're all there primarily, to hit a different problem. They've got a different USP. So I'd say to start off with 3 or 4 capabilities. Well, now, what are your 3 or 4 biggest needs? What are the things you've got to get right that are critical to your business? Okay. One thing I would say, no, things are changing very fast. Get stuff that implements quickly. I'd say one of my key criteria if I was going to choose anything right now would be ease of implementation. How fast can I get this in and working for as little money as possible? You've got to ask a question around the center of your accounting system. Is it best of breed or is it part of the ERP? There's a big decision to make. And the jury for me is still out on that one. I've seen one really interesting new ERP around called Translucent. And they're trying to go back on that idea of you've got an API to everything and you've got this huge tech stack. Well, no, bring it all back into the core system. I haven't looked at it in detail. I can't say yes or no whether it's a great answer, but that's one of the first things you've got to look at. I'd say as well, look carefully at the vendors. Look at the vendors that are constantly developing their products, where they've got a clear roadmap for taking things forward. We touched on on-premise versus in the cloud solutions early on. Now, when in the cloud became the thing you'd got to have, what I saw was a load of smoke and mirrors around suppliers with old systems that tried their very best to pretend they were in the cloud when they weren't. And I'm sure we're going to get similar things that vendors will try to say they're at the forefront of automation, they're at the forefront of AI, when they're actually not. So do your homework on whoever it is you're talking to. I'd also say the biggest opportunity is, well, I'll go back for a second. There's all of the transactional stuff. There's the order to cash area that we've been talking about a lot today, and there's purchase to pay area. Putting solutions in for transactional stuff is relatively straightforward and isn't that big a business transformation. So I'd say look at those. That's where your easy wins are going to be in terms of capabilities you choose today. But I think the biggest opportunities are probably sitting in the FP&A area around analyzing all that data, doing better forecasting, sustainability, ESG is going to be big, and I think extending those analytics into the ESG area is going to be huge. But that in turn is going to be the hardest to implement. Now, and the same goes for financial reporting and shortening the month end. I'm hearing people talk about we'll move to rolling forecasts, we'll move to a fast close. Well, I was talking to clients about both of those things in PwC 25 years ago, and nothing happened. Now, it's because the transformation is actually difficult. AI won't be a magic bullet to sort those things. You have to sort out your processes and the way you do things and the way bits of your company talk to other bits of your company. AI won't be a magic solution for a lot of that. So that's a long-winded answer, Priyam, to what 3 or 4 capabilities of tools would top my list. And it comes
Yeah.
back to that answer. It all depends. Every organization is different, have different requirements. There's no one size fits all.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one takeaway for me often in these conversations is that people often think about FP&A, like planning, forecasting, because you think AI can easily digest numbers. But one thing that they often miss out is the accuracy of the data. Like, do you really have the data on
Oh
which your
yeah.
forecasting can run? And I know Apoor would have some insights about that because we've had customers who were struggling with that, and they needed to fix that order to cash to think about their FPA. Apoor, do you want to share your thoughts on finance tech stack in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, I'd echo what, Kevin said, on the implementation part. And in fact, that's actually one area, if you want to gauge whether a tool is genuinely AI native or it's just, uh, calling itself an AI native tool is to ask them, hey, how long does it take to implement? Because I see a question here that talks about how long did it take to implement AI agents. It took about 2.5 weeks. So implementation is actually one big area that AI agents help with. Uh, Typically, if you had to, let's say, go through a Zora implementation, it would take you 18 months, 12 to 24 months, somewhere in that range. Uh, a lot of it is just because of how human intensive it is. We have seen within our tool how, AI agents can significantly cut down the implementation time, whether it is ingesting the data, spinning up your specific workflows. So again, agree with Kevin that, when you look for tools, ask them, hey, how long does implementation take? And how much of it is done by your team, how much of it is done using AI, and how much of it is dependent on our team's bandwidth. And you will start to get an answer on, are they really an AI native tool, or is it, not really an AI powered or AI native technology? But yeah, to Kevin's point, of course, to have the right FP&A, reporting, or even the planning for the, you need the right data to actually go in on the basis of which you start to plan. And the data needs to be clean, it needs to be structured, it needs to be usable. We, in fact, as an order to cash solution, the output for our tool is the input to an FP&A tool. And a lot of our customers ask us, hey, can you expose data in a way that it can be ingested into an FP&A tool, and then I can go and run better forecasts and better plans. So yeah, data, not just data structure, but also the ease of uh, data transportation between two systems becomes a factor. Like whether you're using an ERP that has all the functions baked in, or you're using multiple different systems into a headless kind of GL where they're all kind of pointing into the GL. What becomes important is how well does a GL talk with order to cash solution, or how well does a GL kind of talk to your reporting solution. So again, there's no one size fits all answer. Sometimes, your needs may not be complex enough, and an ERP that has, a basic module to do billing, to do revenue accounting, to do reporting may be enough. But if your needs are more complex, you need those general specific point solutions that then plug into an ERP and will help. But then you need to make sure that you are not stuck manually downloading data from one tool and uploading it into the ERP, because that is just a nightmare. The tools need to be talking very, very seamlessly. So again, I wish I had a one size fits all answer, but it depends upon the complexity of your requirements, depends upon how many customers you have, how your growth rate, and yeah, but definitely agree that ease of implementation is one big factor to keep in mind.
Yeah, I think that is going to go in all the checklists that people have been making on this call on evaluating all of these vendors. So that's helpful. Awesome. We have very few minutes left, and I want to launch a poll to know how many people here on the call are interested in getting to know about Zenskar. But I want to use the last few minutes to actually talk about mindset shift, because while we've talked so much about, changing roles and AI agents, finance tech stack, a lot is needed, to truly adopt and adapt to the new age. So I want to come to you, Kevin, first on what mindset shift do CFOs need to, make so that they can support this transformation and actually lead it, not just support it. So what's
Okay.
your thought on that?
I'd say actually, Priyam, it's the same mind shift change that a finance leader has always needed to lead any sort of business change. Okay. Um, you've got to be upfront leading the change process. It's taking people through that entire change cycle from beginning to end, from making sure your team is part of designing the solution, making sure your team are involved all the way through, making sure that people are trained properly, making sure that the system's rolled out, making sure it's tested properly. Now, it's all of the things that would normally be there in business change. But the biggest thing about business change is communication. Okay. Your job as a finance leader is to communicate. APRA have touched earlier on something very big that was you've got to have great relationships as the CFO with every other department in the business. Well, as you're doing this, as you're leading this sort of change, whatever change with agents coming in is going to affect a lot of people. So having those great relationships, bringing people along on a journey with you is what it's all about. There's one thing that is different to finance transformation in the past. It's happening faster than ever before. Okay, faster than ever before means that you've got to put extra effort into involving people in it and making sure that people feel as though they're part of the change and it's not being done to them. As soon as people feel as though this change is being done to them, you'll lose them. Okay. And the one thing you really want with these new processes, new agents, and so on, is buy-in from your team. And I suppose, like any business change, these folk are going to feel threatened. It's your job to make sure they don't feel threatened. Well, everybody has had this idea that AI is going to steal my job. Well, not true a large part of the time. What I would say as an individual, watch out, because somebody who understands AI better than you might steal your job, but AI itself won't. We know, particularly in the US at the moment, we've got a shortage of finance people. No, finance teams particularly in the US at the moment, are really grateful a whole load of AI is coming along because they can do more with the people they've got because it's so difficult to recruit extra people. Yeah, again, sorry, Priyam, long-winded answer to a simple question.
No, that's super insightful. Again, I want to answer a few questions of the audience. Apurv, anything to add to that while we pick the questions from the audience?
Yeah, I'll just say, in the 1930s when the calculator came out, people thought accountants will be out of a job because now you have a calculator. And then in the 1970s, a spreadsheet came out, and then you said, okay, now we have the spreadsheet and we all be out of jobs.
Yeah,
And now you
after being a little bit older than you, I remember the day when the first IBM PC turned up in the office and it had this thing called SuperCalc on it, which is
yeah.
what today we'd refer to as Excel. And some of us started scratching our head and wondering what we could do with it.
Exactly. So, I mean, we have AI now, but, I think if you're not scared of it and feel like it'll take away your job, but embrace it and do more, help enable yourself to do more with your time by leveraging this technology. I think, you'll be in a much better place than if you were scared and, felt like it'll take away your job. To Kevin's point, your job is more likely to be taken away by somebody who embraces AI than by AI itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. We have a few minutes left, so I want to come back to all the questions that our audience have posted here. Apurv, Kevin, I hope you're also able to see them. Any favorites? Any one do you want to
I'll
pick
cover
them?
off one that I can see at the bottom of the list first. Where do we find these tech innovation reports on Grow CFO? Actually, you don't even need to be a Grow CFO member to get a hold of this. You just go to growcfo.net, and if you look across the top menu, there's an item on the menu that says Insights. If you press on that, it gives you a sub menu where you can look at blogs, you can look at podcasts, you can look at reports. They're there within the reports section. Okay. But there's another place they are as well. There's a subdomain which is tech.growcfo.net. That takes you to a mini site that is all around this quarter's theme on order to cash. You can see in there the details for the tech showcase we're running next week, where you can go in and look at practical demonstrations of solutions across the board. And there's also a page in there that you can download this quarter's innovation report from. If you want to know more about AI agents and how they're working across order to cash, come and look at what the various vendors that we've asked to come and join us next week are doing. I think it'll be a really interesting day. Don't treat it as being a sales session of just people demonstrating solutions. Look at it as an eye-opener, and we've tried to select their vendors that are not competing with each other, that are looking at different parts of the problem. And I think you'll find some interesting stuff in that session.
Awesome. That was very helpful. I think I put the link in the chat for everyone.
Brilliant, Graham. That's right. That's the link in the chat. Please go and register there.
Awesome. Apoorv, do you want to
I
take the
can, I can take the question. It says, do you need IT people to set up these agents, or can these be set up by, end users or accountants? I think you have all kinds of agents, but there are definitely agents that can be set up by accountants. In fact, the whole point of having an agent is that finance people should not be dependent on engineering teams to optimize and automate their workflows. Again, all of Zenskar's AI agents can be set up by end users as opposed to having IT teams, and there are other tools as well where these agents can be set up by end users. It's like any other tool that you use without having to depend on your engineering team. There are enough agents in the market. It's about knowing what the right agents are for your use case, but you don't need to depend on IT teams to set these up.
Yeah. There's a question there about Zero as well. And yes, and I have seen various solutions around the Zero infrastructure that are starting to use AI quite well. I mean, now Receipt Bank's been there for years, Dext. Um, Upflow is an interesting one in the order to cash space that will work with Zero directly. I'm just trying to think of others. There are quite a number of systems that will work with Zero as an answer to that question. I don't think you've necessarily got to be in the big play, be one of the big players with a big ERP to take advantage of some of this.
Awesome. Apoorv, there's one more question on, do you have a list of AI agents which are currently operational, which you would suggest or advise, which can be easily integrated with legacy ERP? I think we had this discussion about not solving integrations with agents, but having truly built integrations. Do you want to touch upon that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you will find a few on the tech showcase that Kevin is talking about and on the link that Priyam shared. But a lot of these agents are actually, they work with QuickBooks and NetSuite and SAP and Oracle. You don't really need to use a new age ERP. I mean, I'm sure I could pull up a list. Zenskar has a bunch of AI agents that I can talk about. But I'd say, you know, uh, probably just doing what Kevin said, asking ChatGPT to run a research is probably the best way to get the agents for your use case. I have, like specifically in the Dunning space, I've recently heard of an agent company called Stoot. It's STWT. That's the other one that I know of.
And they're joining us on the Tech Showcase next week. So
Yeah, that's why I know of them. So yeah. So, but yeah, those hopefully that helps.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think that's about it from our side, folks. Thank you so much for staying till the end, and sorry for extending by a couple of minutes. Thank you so much, Kevin and Apoor, for sharing all your, candid answers and experiences and use cases. I hope the audience found this helpful and have something actionable, to look forward to on their digital transformation journey. Any final words, Kevin, Apoor?
Graham, I'd just like to thank you very much for taking over my role as chair so that I could contribute as part of the panel today. I think you've done a very good job as the chairperson, Graham. I think I need to watch out. I might be out of a job here.
Awesome. No, the pleasure is all mine. It's always good to represent the audience and learn from panelists like you.
And
Awesome. A lot,
thank you
everyone.
again, Aprav, for joining us. It's been a good session. Really enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to the Tech Showcase next week. Uh,
Likewise. Thanks, Kevin, and thanks to the audience.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.